recently, Donald Trump signed legislation into law that would potentially help curb sex trafficking, but actually has a number of unintended consequences, or maybe even intended consequences. It's known as the FOSTA-SESTA legislation, which again was signed into law. Trump signed into law the set of controversial bills intended to make it easier to cut down on illegal sex trafficking online. The House bill, known as FOSTA, the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, was one portion of it, and that part of the legislation was combined with the SESTA component. And I'll get into the details of all of that in just a second. Now, this is problematic because of the fact that it infringes on certain protections that websites had previously. So it's known as Section 230. Also known as the Safe Harbor Rule under the Communications Decency Act that was passed in 1996. Essentially what it would do is protect websites from any type of charges stemming from a third party doing illegal things on the site. So for instance, if Reddit happens to have a forum where people are soliciting prostitution, the people working at Reddit wouldn't be held liable for that. But under this new law that Trump just signed, they could potentially be held liable. So again, unintended consequences. So
I'm just going to jump in for 1 second, Anna. I believe fully that they are intended. But it's a mixed bag. I think that a lot of the celebrities that supported it did so at the urging of the corporations that they work for. I think they probably had good intent. Some of them might be surprised to find out what's actually in the law or the implications of that law. I think that probably some of the senators who voted for it did not intend it to have the consequences that you're talking about. You're right, and those consequences can be absolutely dire, as we're going to explain in a second. But for the people who orchestrated this, no, it was fully intended. This is part of an effort to shut down the internet. The window is closing. They attack net neutrality. Now with FOSTA and SESTA, they're coming to knock out a lot of the smaller and mid-sized websites. And this is a backdoor way of being able to do that. And it's despicable. And by the way, somebody put out some sort of nonsense rumor, which happens nonstop, that we were for this legislation. That's madness. We're 100% against it.
Yeah, the allegation was that since we hadn't covered this story, which I have to be quite honest with you, was not on our radar. That's the reason why we didn't talk about it. But the allegation was since we hadn't covered it as soon as it broke, then we were supportive of this legislation. We are not supportive of it. Of course, we're against it. And we actually spoke to Janice Griffith, who works in the porn industry, and she explained perfectly why this is actually damaging to people who work in the sex industry. Take a look.
One of the most bothersome things as of late is seeing Hollywood celebrities championing this cause in the attempt to fight online sex trafficking and to be very righteous, when in fact they don't understand the law that they're endorsing, and it's hurting consensual workers. As workers, we've been speaking about these issues for millennia. We've been asking people to listen to us. We've been asking people to amplify our voices, and instead, people with influence are speaking over us and saying that they know better than us. This bill will push traffickers further underground and out of the light. And not only that, but it will hurt consensual workers and has already started to do so. These workers have been pushed onto the street from the closure of Backpage, and our online communities where we can share harm reduction resources are disappearing. This law directly contradicts Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that allows forums and social media and the like to exist in the first place.
So I want to be clear that there's two huge and distinct problems with this bill. One is about sex workers, so it drives, and the other is about the internet overall. So let's talk about the sex workers for a second. And soon, by the way, I'm gonna have Nina Hartley back on the program. We'll have her on Rebel headquarters. I did a long interview with her before. She's an adult film actress, a legendary one at that, to talk more about it. But in the case of sex workers, well, this is what I mean by intended consequences. People constantly put sex trafficking in the same area as consensual sex workers. They're not the same. They're completely different. They're diametrically different. It's preposterous. So one side should be absolutely legal because there's nothing wrong with consensual sex work, and to say that somehow every person involved in that line of work is manipulated, cannot make their own decisions, cannot give consent, and is somehow part of sex trafficking is maniacal, it's puritanical. It's the kind of thing that Ben Shapiro says, oh, all porn is bad, all of this is bad, the morally righteous, both on the right and now sometimes on the left. No, people can make their own decisions and stop lumping them in together. This sex trafficking is monstrous, but let us actually attack that issue. This bill doesn't even do that. It has nothing specific in this bill to actually go after the people doing the sex trafficking that's non-consensual. Putting that in the same camp together is done on purpose to stigmatize sex work and, by the way, adult films. And so it's part of a concerted effort to impose their so-called morality on the rest of us.
Another thing that I wanted to mention was that this overwhelmingly passed in the Senate. There were only 2 senators who voted against it, including Rand Paul and Ron Wyden. Rand Paul, of course, is libertarian. Wyden is a Democrat. And Wyden had asked for an amendment that would further clarify this legislation so it would not have a negative impact on smaller websites. And the Senate decided, no, we don't want to do that. And they decided to vote in favor of the bill in the way that it was already written. And again, it has all sorts of consequences, not just for sex workers, but also to websites. And it's already had some impact when it comes to Reddit. Reddit has shut down certain subreddits because they're afraid. They don't have the ability to just monitor every little thing that's said on their website. And Backpage is gone. Craigslist has gotten rid of its personals page because they're worried that there could be criminal charges against them if someone solicits sexual activity. So this is already having a crippling effect, and it's something that we need to fight against, because I do think that there are some websites, bigger websites, who want a monopoly and they want to shut down the competition. This is one way of doing it.
And Hollywood wants to shut down the competition as well. Disney pushed this big time, Fox pushed this big time. And so, look, and by the way, the progressive senators that are actual progressives that voted for this made a mistake. And I hope that they recognize that's a mistake. Yes, that includes Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. This was the wrong vote, and they should make sure that they fight to reverse this. God help us in how we can reverse this. So now, let me just do one more explanation of why it's so damaging for the whole internet. Because if you're on a small to mid-sized website, they now can turn around and say to you, well, somebody in your comment section that you never even read offered up services and you didn't catch them. That's it, I'm shutting down your whole website. That's how they close the window on the internet. You don't have a ton of money? Well, the internet democratized the flow of information. And the people in the establishment, the ones with power, especially corporate power, they hate that. They don't want you to have power. They don't want that information democratized. They're gonna come for all independent media and for these independent websites. They're gonna do it through net neutrality and they're gonna do it through this. But look at the 3 things that have passed so far under the otherwise incompetent administration of Donald Trump. Giant tax cuts for the rich and for corporations, and 2 things to shut down the internet. Corporate power is back and it's looking to crush us all. If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.